I'm back, having had a week's holiday, and I feel so good because of this break. And in today's episode, I'm actually going to share with you the lessons that having a week off has actually taught me. But you may have noticed I didn't record a podcast episode last week, and it was for this very reason. I really wanted to disconnect. I like my podcast episodes to be relevant and timely. I like to share the lessons that I have recently learnt or that I'm learning in any given moment, and also kind of reflect on things that are happening in my life in any given situation. So, for this reason, I decided rather than to pre record an episode, to instead just hit the pause button and resume normal service today. And this whole week of disconnect and relaxation has taught me so many different things. Firstly, it has taught me the paradox and power of stopping. Now, when we think about stopping something, there's usually some kind of negative connotation to that. We think that if you stop something, you no longer make progress with it, or you failed in some way. However, there is immense power in stopping that can actually mean you end up with more forward momentum and longevity than you ever would have had if you continued taking action. And this is why I say there has to be a balance with this, because of course you must take action in life if you want to achieve anything. Words alone will not take you to where you want to go. You've got to combine those words with some form of action. However, if your action is not taking you where you want to go, or you feel like you're close to burnout, or you're running on fumes in the same way that I felt just before my week's holiday, then actually you need to stop. Because when you actually stop, you allow yourself to recalibrate, to refocus, to kind of think about and reflect upon what it is that you really want with whatever it is you're working on. And it is in that moment you actually achieve more than if you had just carried on in the same old fashion as before. And it's exactly what happened to me. So I had promised myself last week that I wasn't going to do any form of work. I batch created my video content on YouTube for the very first time ever. I chose to pause my podcast episodes, and I just wanted to switch my mind off, disconnect, and do the things that I don't normally have time to do. So we went exploring, we discovered different parts of Sicily, we met up with people that we know. It was just a really, really lovely week. And I had moments of doing nothing. Dolce far niente, like the process of doing nothing, the sweet art of doing nothing. I really embraced that last week. But it was interesting because towards the end of last week, I felt so rested, so creatively inspired that I decided to completely redesign my website. And I did it in about a day and a half because to me, it just felt so natural. I was in that flow state. And this wasn't something that I had as a high priority. It was something that I had been loosely thinking about because I only recently designed my website. But I know that I designed it and I liked it, but it wasn't something that I felt could carry me into the future. It was very much a stopgap. It was something to showcase what I was doing, but I found it difficult to imagine how I could expand it to offer any future products, services, or whatever I decide to do. And so it was right that I wanted to change it. And I absolutely love the new design. Go check it out if you haven't seen it already, msbrittany.com. And it's super fresh, clean, and it's got the ability to build upon and expand it for whatever I decide to do in the future. And I'm back to blogging again, which is kind of like so old school and retro, but so needed in this world of just short form content. So, I'm super happy with what I've designed, and it happened so naturally because I was in that flow state. And that flow state came about because I'd allowed myself to stop. I did not feel this way up until my holiday. I didn't feel inspired in that way. I didn't feel creatively in flow. And so that is how I learned the paradox of stopping. I actually achieved more in a day and a half than I had maybe a couple of weeks prior to that holiday. And so that's why you must learn to also stop and to not feel bad if you do stop. Like, you do not have to be go, go, go all of the time in order to make progress towards your goals. I actually think taking the time to stop, refocus, and reflect on what it is that you want will take you further along the journey than if you continue doing what you've always done. And so that was the first huge takeaway that I took from having my week of disconnect. The second huge takeaway actually happened more towards the end of my holiday, with some really recent sad news of the boat that sank off the coast of Porticello, which is a town in the province of Palermo in Sicily. And it's super, super sad. Like, it's all over the news at the moment here in Palermo. And I know it's also been heavily reported in the UK as well, because a lot of the crew members on board this boat were actually British. And it's super sad because at the moment, at the time of recording this episode, I know one person has been confirmed as dead. There are 6 people unaccounted for, and the rest, thankfully, were able to be rescued. But what's so sad about this is that, okay, we had weeks upon weeks of wonderful weather. Like, we are in a drought status at the moment here in Sicily. Like, we have not had rain for such a long time, or sustained period of rain for such a long period of time. And, we were in this period of extreme high temperatures. It was really difficult to function, to be honest with you. And then a couple of days ago, the weather broke. And, we started to have torrential rain, thunderstorms, and really high winds. And as a result, this boat, which was off the coast of Porticello, ended up getting struck by the high wind and sinking. And it's so sad because it happened so quickly, in the blink of an eye. And it was just this huge reminder of how delicate, unpredictable, and precious our life really is. And it just made me sit with myself and be like, you've got to appreciate things more. You've got to take risks more. You've got to follow your heart. You've got to look after yourself. You've got to not chase the materialistic possessions and the money, because you can have all the money in the world and something like that can happen. Money does not protect you from natural disasters and from things that can be completely unexpected and unimaginable. And I think it also made me reflect on how nature always shows us who is boss. We get so consumed with our lives as humans. We really do think we rule this planet. But actually, it's in those moments of freak weather conditions, natural disasters like tsunamis, earthquakes, hurricanes, where we are really reminded of who is in charge, and it's not us. And I think, we really show a complete lack of respect and disregard for our environment. Even here in Palermo, I talk about it so much on my YouTube channels, but the amount of rubbish and neglect that people show to the environment in this city astounds me and kind of disappoints me in equal measure. And it's this, isn't it? We cannot imagine that we can live our lives like this and there's no consequence in the future. What we do now will always come back to bite us. And it's kind of reflecting on these moments. And as much as this is a more somber reflection and something that is an absolute tragedy, it also really comes with a really important message behind it. We have to look after our environment more. We have to start respecting where we live, because we end up, in a way, contributing to these kind of freak weather conditions and environmental problems that we are experiencing. And we also must look after ourselves, and we must really make the most of life. And, just a couple of weeks ago, I actually ordered a poster, which is a mock-up of a Monopoly chance card. And it literally says, take the risk or lose the chance. And I really believe that this is the motto for life. You've got to take the risk in life. You've got to live life to the fullest, because we never know when our time on this earth is done. We just don't know. We are not privy to the future. We can have plans and goals for the future, absolutely, but you've always got to keep one foot very much firmly in the present. And that is how a lot of people live here in Italy. They live very much in the present moment. They appreciate the present moment a lot more than most people do around the world. And when you read about these kinds of tragedies, not even just this here in Italy, but like wars and all of the other atrocities that happen around the world, and people who lose their lives on a daily basis for whatever reason, you are reminded of this even more. Like, life is so fragile, and yet we all take it for granted in some way, shape, or form. We all neglect ourselves, or neglect to look after the people around us, or to form those connections and relationships, or follow our dreams, whatever it may be. We all take life for granted at some point and in some way. And I think, I've been just profoundly reminded of just the significance of life through reading this news report and following this news story, both with the British press and the Italian press as well. And it's this, and it's this that I want to kind of close this episode on. Like, learn to stop in life, because in stopping, you will gain your greatest power, and also learn to appreciate your life. Life isn't perfect. Life can be extremely unjust and unkind, but you have to learn to find things to appreciate within it, because we are all here for a reason. We are all here to learn lessons and to grow as people. And we all need to make the most of the very limited time that we have here. Because when you read about these disasters and the people that lose their lives all around the world every day, that is the stark reminder of how we do not control everything and how we absolutely need to make the most of what we have. I will see you in the next episode.